Monday. Find a nice comfy seat and just settle into that seat. Let your spine get nice and tall. Let your eyes close. And we'll just settle right in. There's this particularly dark stretch of forest that was being upgraded with a particularly important, particularly valuable lantern, aligning the midpoint of your spine and as that midpoint of your spine is more and more centered, think about how the breath travels in the center of the body, outward towards those lateral edges. Think about where you can soften in the shoulders. And then once you feel like you've really found a position of ease physically, start to prep for a little synchronized breath. We're going to start with a little alternate nostril breathing tonight. But before we get into that, let's just find our capacity to breathe together. So when you're ready, we'll take a nice big inhale in. And an exhale out. We'll inhale in. And we'll exhale out. Take that inhale breath in. As you're doing so, think about maintaining this mid-body stability. And we'll exhale out. And as we exhale out, the musculature softens, but we don't lose our alignment. Let's inhale in together. And we'll exhale out. If you're doing that, let's make a little thumbs up sign. And we'll use that thumb to plug the bottom of the right nostril so that when we inhale in, it'll be just through the left nostril. So you inhale in, draw your breath to the center of the forehead. And then when you're ready to exhale out, let's switch the positioning of our thumb so it comes over to the left side, and we'll exhale out the right nostril. And we'll inhale in through the right. We'll switch the thumb positioning, and we'll exhale out through the left. Inhale in through the left. Switch the thumb positioning, and we'll exhale out through the right. Inhale in through the right. We'll switch the thumb positioning, and we'll exhale out to the left. And let's just do this continually here. Now, inhaling into the left, drawing that energy of the breath to the center of the forehead, and then alternating that release and pull. Once you've settled into your rhythmic capacity to breathe, let's add a little visualization so that we follow the breath as if it's light. Light traveling in through the nostril, up through the center of the forehead, and then exiting on that second side. Drawing back in, pulling and illuminating the entirety of the head, and then exhaling out. It's a lot to keep track of. If you lose your way, just find your way back to the path. Visualizing that light drawing in, illuminating the head, and then exiting the opposite side. Feeling the breath draw in, feeling that illumination, and then allowing the breath to exit. And let's complete one more full cycle here, ensuring that the final exhale happens through the left nostril. And when you're complete, with no rush to make that true, but when you are complete, just releasing both hands down to your thighs, letting the palms point skyward or ceilingward, and finding your way back to that delicate, fluid inhale and exhale cycle. Maybe even staying with that visualization of breath drawing nourishment and light in. Maybe letting that light explore other areas of the body beyond your head. And then the next time that you exhale, let's, at the end of the exhale, so with the lungs empty, tuck the chin and try to tuck it right into that little soft spot above the sternum. Really pulling the chin back there. And then drawing your inhale breath and feeling that subtle restriction at the base of the throat. And then as you exhale, release your head back to neutral. Feeling the inhale breath come in and nourish you. And then exhaling, and as we exhale, letting the chin come down and tuck into that sternum space, really pulling it back. Feel that inhale breath and feel the restriction. And then as you exhale, release the head back to neutral. Think about how the shoulders relax and soften. And let's take that relaxation. We'll transition to hands and knees tabletop. So getting into our tabletop space, finding the stability that comes from tabletop without losing the softness that we've crafted in our shoulders. Really think about kind of a fluid space in the shoulders, and let's start to sway the entirety of the body. Hips and shoulder girdle moving, rib cage moving. And we'll come back to neutral. And then exhale, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin. Exhale and reverse. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale back to neutral. Curl your toes, lift your seat, and roll back into down dog. Breathe into the depth of your down dog. Maybe even allow yourself the opportunity to visualize the breath filling or illuminating the body here. And then we'll come down to hands and knees, tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and sink our way back into child's pose. And as you land in child's pose, reconnecting once again with the idea of a fluid breath, of a nourishing breath. Being at ease. And as this immaculately crafted lantern was hung high atop above this forest path, and it was lit for its inaugural time. Its light shone down and lit the forest floor in a way that it had never been illuminated before. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. And from tabletop, we'll curl the toes, lift the seat, and reestablish the depth of our down dog. And let's slide our right foot forward in between our hands. Crafting this low lunge and thinking about the stability coming from both feet. Once you feel like you've really established that stable balance, let's sweep ourselves up into a initial version of crescent. Get that nice neutral mid-body, elevate into that top space. And we'll float the hands back down to the mat. Step the right foot back into down dog. And let's walk forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Think once again about that stable base. Think about how the foundation and the footwork are building stability, and sweep yourself up into a nice little crescent. Engage the core. Think about the neutral mid-body. Put the hands down to the mat. And we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and we'll walk our way back into down dog. A nice asymmetry in your down dog possible. Think about crafting the depth through the tailbone. Slide your left foot forward into lunge. Find that foundational stability. Think how the feet are providing you balance, and sweep up to express that balance in crescent. Put the hands down on the mat. We'll step back into down dog. Get the depth. And we'll walk forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your right foot straight back into lunge. Sweep to crescent. Think about the strength in that back leg. Float the hands down to the mat. And we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let your body melt into this fold space. Think about the shoulder girdle relaxing. And as the shoulder girdle relaxes, let your head fall deeper into the fold. We'll drift our awareness to our sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Eventually making our way into mountain. The hands come together at heart center. Think about that 2-fist distance in your feet and imagine that we're just building stability up, paying particular attention to that hip hinge. Squeeze the glutes, activate the quads so that we're more solid in the mid-body. And then with that solid mid-body awareness, we're going to start to do some circles with the hips. So this isn't like hips out. This is body is relatively rigid as we move here. Really keeping that glute squeeze, kind of staying in line so that the angle of the hips and torso is relatively similar. And then we'll reverse the direction. Maybe you come back to neutral. Maybe you re-squeeze the glutes, reactivate the quads, rethink about this center mid-body. And then we start this circle. Staying engaged. Really working really different musculature as we keep that glute engagement and still try to make these circles. Be one more complete cycle and we'll come back to midline and just release the hands. Let the palms roll forward. Think about the shoulders rolling back. Try to feel the space around this hip region and then draw your breath from the lungs down towards the hips. And as you do that, push down into the feet, reflex the quads, and think about elevating the torso. Let's sweep the arms up, palms staying in the direction they are. So they end up facing towards the back of your room, or roughly towards the back of the room. And then we'll fold with an exhale, palms facing up through the fold. And note how different that feels on the posterior chain. As the hands come towards the mat or maybe touch the mat, you can relax and choose the direction that best suits you. And then we'll eventually inhale the half lift. Elongate the spine. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and we'll creep our way back into down dog. Drive that depth. Think about using that lateral chain space. If you were in practice yesterday, we took that extra room along the lateral chain. Think about building that length. Let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. We'll flip the tops of the feet and slide into child's pose. And we just land and breathe and offer ease to our body. Maybe we go back to that visualization of the breath drawing light in and illuminating us from the inside. Like this lantern illuminated the forest floor. And immediately, this area of the forest that was constantly avoided became an important route of travel, trade, of industry. This particular lantern being in such a dark area of the forest was constantly maintenanced, babied, looked after. And travelers would often sing its praises as they saw its light illuminating the forest. Last 15 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. Take our left foot and slide it up forward in between our hands. Think about that foundation of stillness and stability in the feet, and then sweep yourself up into crescent. And as you get up into crescent, we're going to bring our attention to this mid-body region once again. The hands can drop to heart center, so you don't have to worry about our shoulders getting fatigued. Squeeze the glutes. Think about the quad on the right leg. Obviously, the quad on the left leg is doing a lot of work, but make sure the quad on the right work is equally contributing. And then let's start to do some circles here with the torso hips. This is a harder position to trust our lateral stability, right? We don't want to go too far to one direction or the other because it's easy to fall with this asymmetrical stance. It's also very fatiguing on the leg musculature to stay stable here. Come back to neutral, sweep your arms up and reset, and then float the hands down to the mat. We'll step that left foot back into down dog. Now pay attention to the room we've created from that little rotational space. And drive length into the sacrum. And then let's take this to the second side. Right foot steps forward. We think about that foundation of stability first. Splay the toes out wide. Get strong in your foundation, then sweep yourself up. And as you get into this top space, think about how we can engage the glutes, the quad on the left side. That right side quad's active. Hands can come once again to heart center. And then we're going to start some hip movement here, some circles here. The amount of movement, the capacity of movement is completely up to you. Really working on those femoral heads as we provide all of this stabilization musculature activity so we can stay vertical. And we'll come back to neutral, re-express. Crescent, float the hands down to the mat, and we'll step the right foot back into down dog. All that space, those femoral heads are so open in the hip socket. Get back into that length. And then let's walk our way forward and into fold. We'll inhale into half lift. Think about how those femoral heads are responding as you exhale back into your fold space. And then let's slide our right foot straight back into lunge. Get all the way into that depth. Think about the foundation. Sweep yourself up and then drop the hands to heart center. Now, we're going to move in the opposite direction of the way we just moved. If you don't remember which that was, just think about which direction you want to move and move the opposite way. And that opposite way is probably going to be more challenging. Your brain likely knew which was the easier way to move, and your brain likely has left the more challenging side for us to explore this time. One more full circle. We'll come back to neutral and sweep those arms. And then float the hands to the mat. And we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Really feel how that proximal femoral head is responding. Exhale back. Left foot slides straight back and into lunge. We build our foundation, then sweep to crescent. Drop the hands. Think about which direction your body wants to go and go the opposite way. Let this be a challenge. Really think about the settling of that bone structure while we have all of this requirement of stability. Feel the depth you're creating here. Try to stay vertical. Next time we go complete circle, we'll pause, sweep to fully express, drop the hands, and step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Settle all the way into that fold. Relax the hamstrings, relax your breath. Maybe in this fold, think about illuminating the body with those inhale breaths in. And then when you are ready, as you are ready, let's drift our awareness to our sacrum and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Really pay attention to how the hips are feeling here. This is a unique openness around this mid-body. So as you get into mountain, remember that the glutes and quads still required to activate to keep this engaged stability. One more full breath here. Just thinking about being stable in this new space. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And then draw the hands towards the back of your room. So rotate towards the thumbs. And then squeeze those elbows down so like we're holding a really heavy platter. With this engagement of heavy platter, think about drawing back across that hip line and just hugging the hips back, but keeping the palms facing up. So we're not tilting them down. We're staying with this ideology of heavy platter. And we're pulling that anterior hip crease back. Trying to get as low as we possibly can without spilling. Drop the head, but keep the palms up. Release the hands. Feel the back side of the shoulder blades and that subscapular tissue really release. Plant the hands. We'll walk back into down dog. We'll come down to hands and knees tabletop. Feel how active that quad engagement is. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Really release into your breath here. We are looking to normalize the respiration rate, the circulation rate. We want to take a conscious approach to our breath here. And so the more attention this lantern received, the more words of praise it heard, the more full of itself and its importance it became. Maybe it wasn't unwarranted. But what was unwarranted was the belittling of the things that didn't shine in the forest, particularly the shadows cast by the lantern's light. They became the lantern's favorite object of ridicule. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we will curl our toes, lift our seat, and re-engage a down dog. And let's slide our right foot forward into lunge. Ground the left heel and take your right hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of the right foot. Left hand's going to come onto our hip so that we can find a side angle, but looking to have some relative ease here. Then we're going to draw ourselves up, hands staying on the hip into kind of a modified warrior two. We want to use the space we have in the hips here. So this back hip, this back quad is engaging and pulling open. And then we're going to tilt forward like we're going to side angle, but actually let's take the forearm to the thigh so we can kind of get ease here. Looking to use the hip space to elongate this lateral chain again. And then extend your left arm straight out, palm down. One big, long side body angle. And we'll draw ourselves up into a traditional version of two. All of that hip space. Left heel spins up, we'll find crescent. Float the hands to the mat. Step the right foot back into down dog. Drive the weight into the sacrum. And let's step our left foot forward into lunge. Lay the toes, establish the foundation, ground the right heel. Left hand to the medial edge. Right hand to the right hip. Build that line and strength. Tilt up into our modified version of two. But as you do, flex that right quad so that we can peel open. Make sure you're not collapsing into that medial edge of the left quad. Ooh, big, wide space, left forearm to left thigh. Think about that side body angle, then right arm extends out, palm down. Big, long angle here. Hollow out the armpit. Draw yourself up into two. Reestablish that big wide space. Heel open. Right heel spins up. We're into crescent. Drop the hands to the mat. Step your left foot back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees. Keep the toe mounds active, and let's sink the seat back towards the heels. Now, your choice here, you can continue to walk your way up towards the seat if that feels accessible for you. But the most important thing is that we have some nice extension of those toes. So whether we're in a modified child's pose or we have a little more verticality to the torso, we're activating that plantar fascial tissue. Kind of finishing this unique approach to length here. We've worked this mid-body really aggressively, and we play with the end of the chain or the beginning, depending on how you're viewing yourself. And we'll give ourselves just 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's bring ourselves forward. We'll flip the tops of the feet and sink back into a traditional version of child's pose. And you may be absolutely shocked at the availability of space here. A lot of that coming just from opening the feet. Really, and how the feet play on this anterior tibialis musculature. All right, that extension energy really pulls into the anterior tibialis. So as you are settling here, think about getting all the way back into that hip region, into that proximal femoral head. Think about allowing this anterior sheath of musculature and its new length to really allow depth. And let's just give ourselves 30 more seconds here. Maybe going back to that breath where we visualize the illumination in the body and thinking about how that light plays within us. And when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, curl your toes, lift your seat, and find down dog. And let's walk our way forward into fold. And we'll inhale into half lift. We'll exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. We'll come into this top space. And let our hands come together, heart center. Maybe let your eyes close here. Maybe feel or visualize the breath entering and exiting the body. When it feels appropriate, let's sweep the arms up and overhead. We'll turn towards the thumb, so the palms face towards the back of the room, and then hug those elbows down until we can craft that space where we can carry that heavy tray. Think about the hinge of the hips as you start to draw back. Keep that heavy tray energy in the hands and the arms. The biceps are working here. The hips continue to pull back, and we continue to lower further and further without tilting the tray until there's no more room to lower and we can only drop the head. And as you drop the head, feel that entirety of the torso's posterior chain release. Release the hands, plant the hands, and we'll walk back into down dog. Let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll sweep the legs out in front of us for a little staff. Nice work. So establishing that mid body, that staff position, that good neutral angle, and then just finding your way forward into a fold. Trying to use that torso posterior chain length that we just offered to now maximize our forward fold capacity. And so when the lantern was shining its brightest, it would often call down to the shadows it was casting about how useless they were and about how all they did was obscure the path and block the light from being helpful. Let's give ourselves 60 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, let's bring ourselves back to vertical, and then we will lower ourselves onto our spines. Letting your body just receive here for a moment. Not asking anything other than what is the shape that will be the most beneficial for my body to receive the neutrality of the mat. Last 15 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, let's pull our thighs in towards our torso, and we'll keep the spine neutral as the hands reach towards the legs. Think about this flat, expansive torso. As you compress that anterior hip crease, pulling the knees towards the armpits. And then maybe, if it feels accessible to you, extending the hands towards the lateral edge of the feet or the ankles for a little happy baby. Instead of moving in happy baby, think about keeping the spine flat. Think about being as connected to the mat as is possible. And then energizing those knees down towards the mat itself. We'll give ourselves 15 more seconds here. And we'll release the feet. Let the feet come all the way down to the mat and let the arms fall to cactus. Knees start to explore some dynamic sway. Just moving in both directions. Exploring your body's ability to rotate and settle. And then eventually letting your knees settle on one side or the other. Whatever side feels best to begin with. The shadows themselves never really called back to the lantern. In many ways, they had to agree. They did create darkness. They were the representation of blocked light. And when the travelers came through the forest path, they never commented on the shadows. They always gave praise to the lantern for being there and for lighting the way. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll let the knees fall over to the second side. Let's bring our knees back to neutral. And as we settle here, let's ask ourselves if there's anything that we may want, may benefit from, that would be advantageous prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. And if you have everything that you need, if you're ready for stillness, let's find our way into that stillness. One night, this incredibly powerful windstorm blew through the forest, and it rocked the lantern to its core, swaying it so violently that it fell from its post and crashed on the ground, the wind extinguishing the light. And it was almost at that exact moment a traveler happened to be coming through. Your version of your Shavasana when you're ready. This traveler very slowly, very carefully made their way through this dark path in the forest. And when they were asked how they navigated it, they said they used the shadows, the contours of the shadows, notifying them where obstacles would be. And word got back to the lantern as it was repaired and replaced and rehung. And it was never again speak illy of the shadows. We'll start to bring some movement in our fingers and our toes, our wrists and our ankles, up into our elbows and our knees, shoulders and hips, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue all begin to move. And with them, the entirety of the body explores the space around us. And we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in. We'll find our way into a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. And with your next inhale, let's bring our hands together, our heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that both the light and darkness of our world offer guidance? And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Have a beautiful week. I will be back on Sunday to recharge. I love the heck out of you guys. Mwah.